Today, we're taking an inside look at one of the biggest Broadway productions that has been running for many decades and has grossed over $1.5 billion. We're going to talk about how the Broadway production of this has such a large fan base and how moving into the studio was a completely different vision, and how the general failure of translation from Broadway into studio production fails, and how this might apply to you and your business. What's up, and welcome back to the Living Vision Show. Today, we're taking an inside look at one of the biggest Broadway productions that has been running for many decades and has grossed over $1.5 billion. You may have heard of it. I'm here in Mexico City and walking by a 7-Eleven just weeks after the release of Wicked for Good in theaters. There's posters everywhere, even in foreign countries. This idea that this Broadway movement is now worldwide and running on the big screen is really exciting, but it's also leaving a lot of people very upset. And the world is at arms about whether or not this movie is a good film, a good production. Today, though, we're not going to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about how the Broadway production of this has such a large fan base, and how moving into the studio was a completely different vision, and how the general failure of translation from Broadway live theater into studio production fails, and how this might apply to you and your business. This conversation is about being a visionary, taking an idea, translating it into a whole new apparatus, a whole new platform, and giving it legs in a different arena when most of the attempts to do so wildly fail. This is about reinvention, about telling a story differently, and about making a quantum leap. Whether you're running a current business and want to make a jump into a bigger one, whether you are in transition because you've exited your company and are ready to grow, or you're idealizing the exit of your company and want to think about your quantum leap, this conversation is for you. Now, I brought Marty to the show today for a very particular reason. Marty has seen the Broadway play many times. He was the one that introduced me to the Wicked empire, and I guess you'd call this it's almost like a universe in itself, but also promoted me going to see the movies and see how they're portrayed differently. So, Marty, this is a mainstay for you at this point. Why is this production so special to you? I guess let's start with that.
Well, one point before that, because I also learned in preparing for this, you want to know the most successful one that has made the leap? Is
Broadway to...
Well, it was movie first, then Broadway.
It has to be Lion King.
Lion King is the most successful that's ever made the leap.
But that went the other way, right? So that went from movie to Broadway.
Right. Which is also just as hard. There are others that have gone that, like Life of Pi, which was book, and then it was movie, and then it became Broadway. So that they take different routes, and some, as you said, are successful, some are not.
Yeah, they can't make the jump, can't make the transition, right? Can't make the change.
No different from book to movie. Like
from
Harry
book to
Potter,
movie, yeah,
the first book
sure.
The movie was nowhere near as good as the book.
For sure, yeah. Well, I know the literary space is something that you're really in tune with. Why do you feel like the Wicked story is so unique and has such a powerful audience? Because there are raving fans of this community.
They're crazy. Like most. I think I've shared this with you. There's only two shows that I have gone back to continually, because there's an element because the story is about transformation, I think, more than anything. And that's this one as well as Les Mis. They're the only two that I have invested a lot of time, reflection, writing, different things throughout the years. It is the element of transformation, and that they have the ability to invite you into these characters by seeing yourself in the characters. And both of those shows do it really well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I've enjoyed the theme of transformation. Our focal point today will be the business side of this, but none like even the idea of transformation inside of the movie is still represented in this transformation from Broadway to studio, right?
Correct. Yeah.
To I keep wanting to use the word theater, but it's really it's theater to movie, and that's its own transformation. And I think underneath all of that, we can learn as a business owner or as a business leader how to do it right. So let's start with some fun facts for everybody. We'll
But
go there.
and I think because you've seen both of them, many people have seen both. Like in the movie, that entire set, it was a city that was built for that movie,
Yeah,
which is crazy to think. That can never be done on stage. What you're able to do within that movie theater and
absolutely.
transform the story in that way, you just can't.
Well, and I'm excited to dig into that particular piece as we portray how this might connect to a business owner. Because who knows? Maybe everyone listening, maybe you listening, have seen Wicked as many times as Marty. I've only seen the movie. I've really seen each of them once. I've seen the play once. I've seen each of the movies once. Maybe Marty, as we go, we can help connect that idea of expanding the visual representation of the play into the movie. We can connect that to business because I think that matters to everyone.
Because
Okay,
it's about vision at that point.
definitely. I mean, this the translation itself from theater to movie is really a business vision. So here's some fun facts. Over the lifespan of Wicked as a Broadway show, it has grossed over $1.5 billion. So this thing is cranking as a business. And I have to imagine that this is not the first time someone has approached the Broadway organization, the owners, the rights holders, and said, "Hey, let's make a movie of this." I'm sure it's not the first time, but this thing has been cranking out. How long has the show been running?
I want to say like 2003, maybe
So
22
okay,
years.
so 2 decades.
Yeah.
Let's just go with two
And
decades.
it's gone that long without closing. It has not closed on Broadway since it opened, which is also a
Right.
rarity.
Well, if you divide 1.5 billion by 20, I mean, this thing is there are shows all the time.
Yes.
And what I find fascinating is that in the 22
Think
years,
about the night that we went to see it live on stage. That theater holds 1,000 people. That place was packed.
yeah, in the 22 years this thing has been running, there's also two key characters, right? The two main characters, Glinda and Elphaba, are the same people the whole 22 years. Is that also correct?
Yeah. The only thing that changes is the person that plays them.
Yeah.
What
Is there?
fun fact: the two originals were in the movie, the first movie,
Oh, cool.
as different characters, but they were in the movie.
They like, yeah, they won a
Yes.
spot. So this long tenured structure, Broadway play, it's got a marketing engine, it's got a fan base, it's got revenue, it's got success, right? Notable success. I would argue that the Broadway machine is a very small demographic, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know about it. I didn't follow it. I didn't track it. So it's a small demographic, but a very powerful one. And I would also bet you can validate this, that people in that space went and saw it multiple times, right?
Yes.
They brought their friends, and like it's just kind of like an inner little community.
Yeah.
So that immediately ties to what a lot of businesses are, right? Very successful, but they're their little nucleus. And you've got your mainstays, your characters, your individuals that are key to the success of it. But at 1.5 billion, this thing had 20 years of financial success without really being very known. And as a visionary coming into this to say, "Hey, I want to convert this into a studio production, a movie, a two-part movie nonetheless," we can also say, well, that takes a lot of gumption and a lot of stones to want to try to re-represent this, because it is very different, right? It opens up a whole new world
Right.
for
Yeah.
this platform.
It goes from also a niche audience to mass audience production.
Right. So the audience changes. So your customers change, your expenditures change. I watched a set, like, you only need 11 people, and 11 people are all 38 characters.
Right, right.
You're moving sets around and backdrops and all that, but it can be contained, and once you copy it, you duplicate it, no problem. But what a movie allows you to do is to tell the story the same way. I think they actually stayed really true to the story,
Yes,
but you have to tell it very differently because you
yes,
have the ability to, and audiences need a different experience when they watch a movie.
correct.
Totally different business.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a number of times in the experience. It there's a lot of benefit on the movie screen versus Broadway because of your ability to tell the story differently and more with greater detail, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you can take the things that on set are clearly make believe and make them feel real.
Yes. Yeah.
You can create magnitude that's so much different. Well, here's some fun facts for the
I
screen production.
I think I had even told you before I saw the movie, how are they going to translate her flying at the end of the first act into a movie? Because that's really the climax of the before intermission in Broadway on Broadway, and they did it remarkably well in the movie.
Mm. Yeah, it's a profound moment for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
They clearly understood that had a moment of significance, not
correct, correct.
and that if you make it movie, you still have to magnify that moment.
Yeah, I think they made it even more significant in the movie.
Yeah. So here's some fun facts about the movie, the first movie. So this is the first act of the Broadway play done in movie form. Generated more than $630 million worldwide. Not quite at 1.5 billion, but that's a really fast way to get to nearly half of that number. I mean,
Mhm.
that's profound. The second movie is tallying just over 226 million and is
As of a couple weeks ago.
yeah, is only 3 weeks old, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah,
Um, so there's a lot of productive movement that this thing could close $1 billion just in the movies, just in the 3 years that they've been out in some collective space. What I think is interesting though is that this this idea of converting from theater to movie is actually a strong business play. We know that 60% of these translations, 60 to 70% of these translations don't work. So not only do you have to come in and have the vision for, the representation of this, you have to have a really solid business strategy. And what I think we can learn as visionaries is that there are core components to this translation that matter. Number one that you mentioned is that they understood that certain moments in the movie needed to be told in a significant way and needed to have this profound significance that you still need to emphasize on a screen, right? You can make it look great, but it still needs to have something special
yeah,
to feel significant.
yeah.
I think that's an important one. The second is that
Go ahead.
the second is that the audience, the raving fans, needed to come over. That you
Correct.
need to translate this so that
Not only come
fans
over,
love it.
but in the world we live today, also translate that into positive review online,
Bring your
right?
friends and tell
Yeah,
people about it for sure. And
yeah,
and to stay true to the audience, but translate requires a really delicate set of considerations, right? And many business owners, I think, in any capacity, when they go to translate success from business one to business two, they don't always bring their people along. The really good ones do, right? Steve Jobs brought people along. Um, Musk, love or hate him, is bringing people along. And whenever they translate from business one to business two to business three to business four, people are following the visionary in some sense. Really, really cool to see them do that successfully because I think a lot of people bought in.
yeah. Well, even if it's not business one to business two, if business one is looking to have its like second iteration, so it wants to scale, which essentially is what this is doing. They're scaling the
They're
business
scaling. Yep.
from Broadway to a broader audience, worldwide audience. Does the visionary have to expand that vision in order to do that?
Everything has to expand. I mean, I think like any other business, when you're scaling, you have to acknowledge that things are going to break. You have to acknowledge that systems, and I would say systems in this case are not the same as running a donut shop, but systems in this case might be customer reviews.
And they might be, but who knows? I don't know the system of Broadway and how that operates.
Yeah,
Well,
I think the other systems are like toys and other publication elements, right? Those are part of the scale as well. I mean, there's a Wicked sign in front of 7-Eleven down in Mexico City.
Mexico City, yeah.
So there's a lot of material.
What worked over here doesn't necessarily translate into working over here in the iteration.
Yeah, it's a completely different methodology. Broadway, you can get away with sort of an old school set of materials, supports, and offerings.
It is
right?
still old school.
Yeah, and it's intent on maintaining that, right? They're deliberate about like not over teching it and not oversaturating. Like you don't see toys outside, but when you go to Target and you release a movie, you got to have toys in the movie for younger audiences or support on those things. You've got energy drinks that are coming out with Wicked. There's just a lot of other things that go into scale. So you have to let go of the old paradigm completely, right? That's the business lesson that I think we can take. Number 3 is that you can't play by the old rules in the new game. You have to be willing to step into this space. And the way that Wicked has become now a much different platform, it's also attracting different attention, right? And they were okay letting those rules, the old school rules, go in the scale approach.
Yeah, well, I think one of them, it'll be interesting to see how does iteration 1 Broadway get affected because of the movie. Because now you're going to have people that have seen the movie go over to Broadway, and what happens to the audience? 'Cause both are still going to exist simultaneously.
Yeah.
At least for now. But what does it do to that first iteration of that business model now that this has kind of blew it up in some ways? And we don't know.
Well, like any business that scales, the old offer changes, and it actually is very hard for many to keep both, right?
Correct.
So I do wonder if part of this was about sunsetting the Broadway side of things, because you can't do it forever, but maybe it becomes a little bit more bespoke, right? It's run less frequently, and this is the translation of it. But to your point, I think point 4 we can extract from this: when you shift into scale mode, you have to entirely focus on the new direction. You have to go 100% in. And I haven't seen anything about the Broadway play. I've seen reviews that are mixed, but largely it seems like they don't know the original work. But
Correct.
you've kind of got to go all in on, we're going to take the bad reviews with the good reviews and steer to a new audience and steer our current audience into the new platform.
Yeah, it's always interesting reading the reviews of the movie. I'm like, you obviously have not seen the Broadway show because it's clear who has seen it and who hasn't based on their review.
Yeah, definitely. And like, this is a complex play, right? It's a very complex set of themes that are not as tied off at the very end to be clean. It is meant to leave you kind of questioning because they're not resolved.
Correct.
And
there's no happily ever after at the end of the show.
Yeah, the fairy tale magic is that it's not done. And I kind of like that. And the play leaves you a little bit unsettled also.
But I think, again, the movie, I think it's clear because Glinda is very much the happily ever after kind of person. But you could tell within the character has evolved and changed as well. Yeah. And you could see that much more visibly in the movie. She recognizes it's not over.
Yeah.
But she still has to give the message of happily ever after.
Yep. Well, point number 5 that stands out to me too in this translation is that if I'm the visionary of Broadway, and then someone else or I say, we're going to make this shift in the studio, I have to change a lot. And it was clear that there were some creative liberties that were allowed because you can't tell the story the exact same way.
Correct.
If I'm responsible for vision one and then I go to two, I have to take some new liberties, right? I have to be willing to look at the core and then change the rest or get rid of the rest. And this new vision, this new business, this new scale required way more attention to detail, way more. Like you can get away with a lot because from a play, I mean, I don't remember how far away we were when we watched it, but far enough away that like I didn't care.
Correct.
Right? I'm not like assessing facial expressions. I'm not seeing detail. Like I'm just getting like the main piece, the theme and sort of the cues. But on screen, you've got to have really big details, and it requires a much more saturated vision. So here's the way I would connect this to business. If you've done well, but you haven't found a way to scale requires a lot of really fine-tuned details to happen. And to understand what's going to be effective, there has to be a level up from the visionary to have more detail. And this is where a lot of scale gets complicated for business owners because you have to get better as a leader. You have to get better at telling the story. You have to get better at identifying systems, processes, routines, culture that you might not have had to at the old version. And that translation is really difficult because it requires a leader to have better vision, to be a better visionary. And I think what we can look at from the data, 20 years, 1.5 billion, 1 year, or probably 1.5 years, 2 years, maybe max is like the window for this, $1 billion. This visionary was able to capture that love for this. And what he did effectively was bring over the old audience because he had a level of detail that was really, really high and matched what that audience wanted.
And they brought in people that would draw an audience.
Yeah.
But with the two main actresses. I did learn one thing about them as being, they were not friends with one another prior to this movie being done. Because someone had asked them, what do you think made the two of you so successful in those roles? And she had said that Alphaba said she believes from the moment they found out that they'd be acting together with one another, they grew their own personal relationship with one another.
Makes sense.
Because they had to be able to have an emotional connection with one another. And she said even if they were on the treadmill, they'd be texting from the treadmill, hey, I'm just exercising, and just allowing the other person into their life to create that bond so that could then be portrayed on screen.
I love that. Well, let's make that connection. Point number 6, the building of the key players, the building of this vision required the key players to understand that vision and to be cohesive, which is the same in business, right? You need your C-suite. You need everybody going the same direction. You also need your team to be cohesive. And it was clear that in every interview and every pre-event release party that they were at, like they were together. They were together. And I actually don't know a lot about how this got pitched, but to see them together was really indicative of what I take. And that's that someone painted a clear enough vision of these two characters being so interwoven that the actresses took that on with such a passion and a diligence, just like you need in a business, the CEO to have the vision and then everybody, the leadership team underneath them to buy in as well. And I think that's a key component of the reason this was so successful is a vision was painted and key players got all the way on board.
Yeah. Yeah. It's clear throughout.
Yeah. The whole thing was great.
Because there's always an element of, are these people just acting or do they actually like one another. And
Hmm.
as you mentioned, like everything you see about them appears that they actually enjoy being around each other.
And I think in any other movie, like if you're translating a book to a movie, you want your leadership team, your actors, your main actors, to be together. But there's like singing, and I wouldn't say there was dancing, but there certainly was a lot of movement during their singing.
Yep.
There were some dance-esque sort of portrayals, but this is like very emotional music that they're singing at the same time. So this required a lot of clarity to put together and to shape all of this.
And was all done live. The singing was done live. It wasn't
Yeah.
pre-recorded or anything. They did it while they were acting.
Yeah. I find that fascinating. I mean, I have so many questions. I would love to speak to people on this team about this because
Right.
again, there was such a clarity of vision for this portrayal that you can't make something this big. Like this is a big universe of fan base that you have to have a real sense of what you're doing. Otherwise, you can almost over adhere to the old way, and then you're just putting a film from like it's just out to appeal to all the Broadway people. It's just a Broadway with a camera, right?
Correct.
Like that's all it is.
Uh, and I, like passing on, there's essentially a passing of the guard when you're scaling in that way. The 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 two original women didn't want to be they felt they had to let their version go so that it can become
Ooh,
bigger.
that's good. Yeah, yeah. That the
NBC, I think it was, had done a special prior to the second movie coming out, and they were on there. I haven't watched it, but I've seen clips of it, and they added to the "For Good" song a verse of them passing the baton to those two. Like, we're done
mm,
now. It's time for something else.
cool. Yeah, very cool. In business, there is an apprehension when scaling from business owners. I know this because I've had to coach it a lot lately, where people want to hold on to their old team, and your old team might not fit in this new vision. It might not.
Mhm.
They might not go with you. And I do think the final song for good in this movie rendition is a really emotional, evocative performance, and it speaks to, in some sense, what it looks like to let go, what it looks like to say to someone, "Hey, you got us really far as a business. You've been the best chief of staff. You've been a really good marketing director. You've been an incredible, COO, whatever the role is, and you've changed this for us. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean you can go with us or need to go with us or want to go with us." And there are a lot of changes when you go through scaling where team members may not be ready to make their own personal change to go with it.
You made this point after we saw the second movie that the transition is in when you're beginning. There's a sense of being unlimited, which is in the first part of the show. If it's very easy to become very limited and an obstacle to the growth at some point if you're not
Yeah.
willing to let go at that point. And
Yeah.
so you even hear that within those two songs of that transition. It's like something has to change because now we're no longer like we were.
Well, every business that scales goes through, at least my experience in it, of it, around it, and coaching it. Every business that goes through scale gets narrower with their team, gets narrower with the roles, narrower with reporting, narrower with accountability. Like it becomes more like a machine. And when it's young, it is sort of unlimited, right? It's like, I have an idea, let's try it. Like, no,
Correct. Correct.
you
Yeah.
have this creative license
Yeah.
to do a lot more. And then you get to scale and it's like, no, we do it this way.
Yeah.
And no, this is your job. And no, don't do that. That has to get approved.
Yeah.
And it becomes a bit more rigid, and that can be really heartbreaking for visionaries, right? Because they don't want any kind of restrictions.
Yeah.
But underneath them, there have to be these practices that are structured and shaped.
Yeah.
And this translation of Wicked from Broadway to the movie screen is a great demonstration of the story of scale. It starts with so much potential, and then the first act ends with this, oh my god, act one, I'm unlimited. And
Right, right.
then literally the whole movie concludes, spoiler alert, whole movie concludes, and it's like, no, I actually am limited and I'm the problem and
Right,
I have to leave.
right. Yeah.
And in order for the vision to come to life, I have to get out of the way. And that is a really cool leadership lesson for us to all interpret. But just looking at the business back end of this, I think this team should be really proud of what they've done, not just in the movie sense and not just in the financial sense. What they did successfully is they scaled a Broadway play. They mastered how to get an old audience to appreciate and approve it, and how to attract a new audience. And no matter what the verdict is on reviews from critics, they successfully captured the love of this story and converted it to scale.
The one other point that I think is important, that it didn't happen overnight. I believe this has been 10, 11-year process before the movie actually
Wow.
made it to screen. So it's been a long process to get to where it is today.
That's a great, I don't know what point, I think we're at point number 8. I think that is a really good point 8, right? That scale doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a lot of work and they probably planned meticulously
Yeah.
for what's CGI, what's real, what's song, what's not, what's live, what's all of that.
And at any point during that, the Broadway could have closed. I mean, that year, COVID was in the middle of all of that.
In the middle of that,
It could have closed at some point. And then what happens to the movie? But they held true to that, to going after that vision.
Yeah. I can appreciate your followership of this. I never would have been introduced to it otherwise. I probably would have had a very skeptical eye from the outside. I actually remember in Baltimore, there was a poster for it because it was at the Hippodrome.
Hippodrome, yeah.
And it was on 83, and it was just a picture of sort of the Green Witch.
Yeah.
And I had always thought it was the story of the Wicked Witch from her side.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was, right? Which isn't not true.
Right.
It's just not the full picture.
Right.
But to now be on the other side and to look at some of my life experience the last several years, I very much appreciated this story because it gave me an articulation of what I had been feeling, where if you paint it one way, I'm the bad guy. But Wicked shows us a whole different color of a person that is trying to make the right things out of the wrong things, and is sort of scapegoated, right? Is villainized and weaponized for another agenda.
Yep.
And I just very much appreciate that. I appreciate that you've steered me to it, because it helped me to see something I couldn't see in my own experience, and give it a whole different portrayal. So it opened up a vision for me too. It's just been really neat to see this production side, this like studio side, because I get fascinated by the business of it, right? The salaries, the money, the CGI, the sets, the way they steered marketing. I mean, marketing is on, like, again, I'm in Mexico and there's a 12-foot tall witch outside of 7-Eleven in Mexico City. Like they're doing marketing all over the place to tell this story, and it's really cool to see that.
I mean, I'll tell people that the first thing after I saw the first movie, I told you have to watch I think it was because of just things you're going through personally. You have to watch towards the end of this movie, because she has to eventually confront her past and let it go before she could finally fly and experience that. And then you ended up watching the whole thing, and then we went to see it at ASU on Broadway across America. So. Yeah, I think it's just a great story. If you go in expecting Wizard of Oz, it's not.
It's not, and I'll say this as a dude, there's a reason why this is predominantly not marketed to like the alpha men and entrepreneurs. But I think entrepreneurs would actually get a lot out of just understanding what's happening. I mean, that's why we're doing this episode, to unpack a different lens of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in with the mentality that the embedded story could help you think about your business different, right? Where you're thinking it has to be done a certain way, and maybe you can approach it differently, or you're maybe preparing to scale, you can certainly gather a lot from it. But you don't even have to see the movie to get what we're talking about. You can just look up the information. Look up the old Broadway, look at the data, look at when it started, look at where it sold, where it didn't sell, look at all those things, and then look at where the movie is doing well and how it's doing well and how it's approaching audiences that are different. And you get a really good sense of the business behind this story.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, when it first opened, I don't know how many years it had gone. You could only see it in one theater, one place in the entire country, in New York. And then it became part of Broadway across America, like we saw it at ASU. And then it becomes the movie. But it started in one building. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. All from a story.
And it's still the place to see it if you want to see it on stage, I think, because it's just that theater is huge in New York and it's done really well there.
Yeah. Whether you are all about the Broadway edition, whether you're all about the movie edition, or you're all about the story, Wicked represents a fantastic business maneuver where a vision was cast and then was scaled, and now has a global audience of more than just Broadway theater fans. It now has a worldwide appeal to a very deep story that flips the script on an old dialogue. And I would encourage every business owner to consider that Wicked and the translation from Broadway to theater, Broadway to a movie, is a masterclass in what it looks like to scale. And not many people are going to look at it that way, but I hope that you do. I hope that you consider watching it. Maybe you can do it in your house at this point. You don't need to go out. And not all men are going to march into that theater proudly, but
correct.
I'm unafraid.
There are also lots of them out there that have failed that you could also see how they have failed if you've seen both.
But those are also good lessons, right? To look at like, why didn't this one work?
Yeah.
For many other Broadway plays, 60 to 70% didn't work, which means that this one did something right. We can study it, we can learn from it, and we can get a sense of how to scale your business from some of the principles that we see applied here. I want all of you, each of you, if you're listening and appreciate this, to share what piece of this story feels like scale most to you. Is it the audience? Is it the idea of roles? Is it the vision? What piece feels most like scale? And send it my way. Jump on Instagram. My name there, Aaron Velke, Aaron, V as in vision, ELKY. And send me your thoughts. Send me, like, did you watch the movie? Did you like it? Would you ever have thought to think of this as a masterclass in vision and scale? Those kinds of things mean a lot to us. Marty and I talk about these things often so we can bring you a lot of value and help turn everyday moments and everyday sort of like under the nose experiences into visionary reflections to help you grow your business. So we're here to help. Take time to write a review or follow us on YouTube, and we will see you on the next episode. Marty, Wicked was a transformational experience. I'm so grateful you shared it with me, and I appreciate being able to dig in here with you today.
I thought you would have sang one of the songs or something.
I was, I've been practicing in the shower, but here we are. I think people would rather hear me talk about why vision works than to sing Unlimited.
I know I would.
I'm not singing Defying Gravity. Okay, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Appreciate you being here with us. Keep living your vision. And if you need help, we've got programs, retreats, immersions, and coaching that might help you level up, take a quantum leap, and scale your business, your vision, and your main characters.
To make you
Thanks for being here.
Make you become unlimited.
I like that. Becoming unlimited. Thanks, everybody.